Gaston Glass became a star in the silence in the 1920s before beginning to star in the Talkies in 1930. But during the 30s, he moved into supporting and bit parts before retiring and moving behind the camera. Why? Join me as I investigate. Gaston Glass was born in 1899 in Paris. He must have begun to act at an early age because, according to one source, he became a protege of Sarah Bernhardt as a teenager and even toured with her on her U.S. tour from 1917 and 1918, which included a run on Broadway with her in From the Theater to the Field of Honor. Gaston appears to have remained in New York following his tour with Bernhardt, as he is credited as appearing on Broadway in Mr. Barnum at the Criterion Theater in September of 1918. Also, before he left France in 1917, he also made his screen debut in The Corsican Brothers. In early 1919, Gaston made his American film debut as leading man to Marguerite Clark in the comedy Let's Elope at Paramount. Since Clark was one of the top stars in America at that time, I assumed the film was a critical and commercial hit. He then had another success in the Anita Loos penned comedy Oh You Women, which starred Louise Huff and Ernest Trudeau. Also in 1919, Gaston had a major role as Harry Merwin in The Lost Battalion, a touching drama that told the true story of that battalion in World War I, with many of its veterans playing themselves in the film. It also appears to have done quite well. In 1920, Gaston had his first major starring role as the adult Leon Cantor in the beautiful music drama Humoresque. The film told the story of violinist Cantor and his mother, Vera Gordon, who sacrificed everything to allow her talented son to pursue his music. The film was a commercial and critical smash hit and was the first film to win the Photoplay Medal of Honor, which was an early equivalent to a Best Picture Academy Award. Gaston remained at Paramount through early 1921, starring in hit films with stars like Alma Rubens and Mary Miles Minter, before moving to the Hodkinson Corporation, which eventually would become PDC, and then that would eventually become RKO. There, he starred in God's Crucible and Cameron of the Royal Mounted in 1921, the latter appearing to have done well, and he played the title role in that film. Gaston appears to have begun to freelance after its release, appearing at multiple studios in leading roles between 1922 and 1928. Sometimes he would be the hero of the film, and other times he would be the leading man to the heroine of the film. Highlights of his work in this period included Glass Houses in 1922, which also starred Viola Dana, Monte Cristo, also in 1922, which saw him on screen with John Gilbert, Gimme in 1923 with Helene Chadwick, After the Ball in 1924 with Miriam Cooper, Parisian Nights in 1925 with Elaine Hammerstein, Tentacles of the North in 1926 with Alice Calhoun, an excellent drama about a group of people in the Arctic who become trapped and struggle to survive, Sinews of Steel in 1927 with Alberto Vaughn, and The Red Mark in 1928 with Nina Quartero. In 1929, Gaston made his talkie debut in Geraldine, co-starring Marion Nixon and Eddie Quillen. He then starred in two late silents that year, Untamed Justice with Virginia Brown Fair and Behind Closed Doors with Virginia Valley. He then made another talkie, supporting Monty Blue and Lupe Velez in the talkie Tiger Rose. In 1930, however, Gaston had three major starring roles in the talkies. He first starred as the Pearl Diver in the short South Sea Pearl, which got him a nice mention in Variety. He then starred with Anita Louise in Just Like Heaven, playing circus clown Jean, who is hopelessly in love with Anita's character Mimi, but Mimi only sees him as a brother. He then starred with Betty Compton and Lee Tracy in She Got What She Wanted, which got him an excellent review in Motion Picture News, but is sadly lost. In 1931, Gaston starred in the John Wayne role in the French-speaking version of John Wayne's hit The Big Trail. Gaston then took 4 years off from acting on the screen, but more on that in a moment. In 1935, he began playing bit parts in major movies, including Becky Sharp, Escape from Devil's Island, and Sylvia Scarlett. However, in 1936, Gaston got the opportunity to play some scene-stealing supporting roles for the next few years, including Louis Bouchard in the all-star cast serial adventure The Amazing Exploits of the Clutching Hand, playing Claude Rains' Napoleon's secretary in a memorable scene in the Marion Davies film Hearts Divided, and La Forge in Espionage in 1937. He only made a few more small appearances on film between 1937 and 1943 before leaving acting. However, beginning in 1933, Gaston reinvented himself behind the camera as both a second unit director, assistant director, and production manager, which he continued doing through 1965. Famously, he second unit or assisted directed such classics as State Fair, Nightmare Alley, A Letter to Three Wives, Cheaper by the Dozen, All About Eve, and Three Coins in the Fountain. As production manager, he managed People Will Talk, Stars and Stripes Forever, How to Marry a Millionaire, There's No Business Like Show Business, An Affair to Remember, and many other films before moving into television where he managed Batman, Peyton Place, and Lost in Space. In 1934, Gaston married actress Bo Peep Carlin, and they had a son, Paul, who became a composer. Gaston appears to have worked right up to the end of his life, which sadly appears to have come suddenly. He passed away on November 11, 1965, at a Santa Monica hospital at the age of 65. So we are left with the question, why did Gaston Glass transition from star to character actor in the Talkies? Well, most people would probably blame him having a French accent. However, in his Talkies that I have seen, it never inhibits my ability to understand what he was saying, and furthermore, he usually played French characters who obviously would have a French accent. I think that he began to lose interest in acting, beginning to shift more and more behind the camera, and thus really just probably not minding that his roles were becoming smaller because he wanted to concentrate on learning all he could about second unit directing and production managing. And then he moved behind the camera permanently. While it's a shame he gave up acting, he was able to continue working in the industry in new positions for which he had more passion, and that's amazing. Fortunately, we have many of his films available to still enjoy. On YouTube, you can find The Lost Battalion, Humoresque, Monte Cristo, Tentacles of the North, Just Like Heaven, and Espionage. Gaston Glass was a truly versatile artist, a brilliant and talented actor, and an impressive director and production manager. What a legend. I must thank my sources for this episode, IMDb, the Internet Broadway Database, Virtual History, and Archive.org for their digitization of variety and motion picture news. Please like and subscribe or follow this account if you want to learn more about the history of silent film stars whose stardom lasted only briefly in the Talkies. Up next, join me as I investigate the Talkie career of Vera Gordon, Gaston's co-star in Humoresque. Thank you so much for joining me. Have a great rest of your day.